Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar entitled How to Build, Identify and Nurture High-Performing Teams. My name is Peter Banks. I'm the MD and founder of the HR Director. We are a strategic resource for senior HR people leaders in print, in person, and online. Delighted today to partner with Thomas International, who are a leading talent assessment platform provider. So my thanks to them for sharing this platform with us. In this webinar, we will look to sort of explore the definition of high-performing teams, the characteristics you can look out for to identify one. Plus, we'll look at the most effective ways to build high-performance teams, how you can develop them in your organization, and the current challenges teams are facing, which are plentiful, aren't they? And let's introduce our panel today. So firstly, joining me is Jonathan Pitt. Jonathan is the Learning and Development Manager at Pure Retirement. So good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning.
And also with us today is Claire Dwight. Claire is the Global Training Specialist at Thomas International. So good morning, Claire.
Morning, Peter.
Right, okay, so now we introduce you both, so let's find out a little bit about both of you quickly. So Jonathan, if you could give us a brief overview of your role and your organization, please.
Yeah, certainly, Peter, thank you. So actually, I'm known to most people as JP, so feel free to call me JP. As you said, yes, I'm the Learning Development Manager here at Pure Retirement. I've actually spent the majority of my career in various different management roles, working for quite a large corporate company beforehand, a large insurance intermediary, before I moved fully into the L&D world just over 4 years ago. I'm a qualified practitioner for Thomas International's PPA and Trait Emotion Intelligence, and I'm also a mental health first aider. My team and I provide all the learning and development needs right across our business to develop our individuals and therefore our teams as well. And as you said, Pure Retirement, we are one of the UK's leading equity release mortgage providers. We're a pretty young company. Just founded in 2013, but we are one of Yorkshire's fastest growing companies. And currently there's 212 of us. We're really zooming towards that 250 mark though very quickly. And currently we're gold accredited standard in Investors in People, and we are pushing on for platinum status.
Thank you very much. And Claire, to you, please.
Thank you. So I've been a trainer with Thomas since 2015, and my role is to basically train people on the use of our suite of assessments and help them to apply those assessments to improve performance. So this involves accreditation sessions, train the trainer sessions for our global community, and I've been lucky enough to work with Pure and JP a couple of times as well before today. And prior to working for Thomas International, I was a sales team leader within the automotive industry, and I've also got over a decade of experience as a teacher, so I'm kind of both primary level up to secondary and further education. So that's a brief overview of myself.
Brilliant. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Jonathan. Right. Okay. Lot to pack in. So let's get underway. In fact, if we can, let's go with our first poll of the day. So that should appear on your screen now. And the question is, which of these blockers would you estimate is the most prevalent within your organization's teams? So it's multiple choice here. So A, lack of trust, B, fear of conflict, C, lack of commitment, D, accountability avoidance, or E, inattention to results. So have a little look at those. If you could all take part, that would be really useful, and we'll feed the results back in. Just give us a flavour of what you're kind of coming up against. So just while we're waiting for that, Claire, just any predictions? What will be top from you then?
To be honest, it obviously could be any of them, but I guess my thoughts would be probably conflict or maybe the fear of trust.
Jonathan?
Or lack of trust even.
Jonathan?
Sorry, I can't actually hear you, Peter.
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm just saying, is it similar, and do you think similar sort of, what are you expecting to see as the kind of main
Yeah,
ones here?
I would say I think lack of trust would be a big one, or potentially lack of commitment.
Right, well, let's see if we've got some results. Yes, we have. So still a few more collecting responses at the moment. But looking so far, pretty split really. Accountability and avoidance, 34%. Fear of conflict, 32%. Lack of trust, 28%. And then lack of commitment, only 4% and 1% for inattention to results. So yeah, those three are quite close together, I would suggest. So that kind of seem right with you, Claire?
Yeah, I know that at the moment, especially with hybrid working, etc., it's more difficult potentially to develop trust, and the knock-on effect of that is that conflict can come to the fore a little bit more, which then may lead on to those other issues as well.
Yeah, great. Okay. All right, well, let's start with our first question, following on from the poll, really. So, Jonathan, if I could start with you. So what are the biggest barriers to creating and developing your high-performing team? So give us a flavour of what you think to look out for.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot, to be honest with you, so I've tried to narrow it down. I think the first one probably would actually be a lack of investment in management and leadership training. If our leaders don't have the understanding of how to actually create and therefore manage and maintain a high performance team in the first place, we're going to really struggle to even get to that point. So that would be point number one. I think another thing as well I've seen previously is being really task focused rather than actually people focused. Here at Peel, we're very strong believers that it's actually our people that drive our business successes. Therefore, we invest a lot of time to develop our individuals to be the very best version of themselves they possibly can be as well, rather than leaving them to stagnate. If we were to do that and not focus on their development as individuals, that will probably lead to frustration, therefore lack of engagement. And if you've got that, then you're going to have poor performance. And then I think another big one for me would be either not having a team or a business vision. Without this, how is the team going to know where they're actually aligning themselves to? How can they work together as one to achieve these goals and results? That's my main point, I think.
Yeah, so this yeah, it's vision really important to know where you're heading. Claire, just typically, you know, just on what Jonathan said, and also what you see with your clients, what is that the sort of barriers you see?
Absolutely, especially when it comes to that lack of clarity and direction. So if a team doesn't really know what their purpose is, maybe beyond general function and completing tasks, it can then lead to a lack of engagement. And the other issue directly related to that is poor leadership. So as JP said, you know, if we don't have that investment and people don't feel equipped to be good leaders, that can have that knock-on effect. And then just other general barriers, lack of buy-in, people who are not engaged generally in their own role. And I think that's where JP's alluded to, the fact that the focus on people is hugely important. And then another issue which I've seen, not frequently, but it can have a huge impact, is kind of the bad apple of the team, behaviorally someone who kind of is quite destructive, and that can impact the overall team morale and the team kind of cohesion. But yeah, I think the important thing is for a team to know their purpose, again, beyond task and function, but their purpose within the wider business and so on. So you need that clarity and that direction.
Okay, yeah. So okay, so lots of different key things to look out for now. Just any questions on this, please just send them through, and we'll kind of ask them as they come in. Don't forget that's on the Q&A kind of area. So okay, so let's talk about, so Jonathan, for you then, so have you, looking at how do you identify an existing high-performing team within your present organisation? So how have you gone about that? Just give us a flavour of what you're looking for.
Yeah, we have quite a few different measures actually. The first one I think that's crucially important, and we have mentioned it a few times, but it's about engagement. So we do run an annual engagement survey through Thomas International as well, because we know that if we haven't got an engaged team, we're not going to have a high performance team. On the back of that, when we get the results through from the engagement survey, we can then focus on any feedback, and we're very quick and very responsive to quickly put measures in place to actually address those issues. I think it's also vital as well that we have measures in place as well, so we can monitor output, because output is clearly a measure of a high performing team. So it's important to have targets or service level agreements in place as well. And it's when these are being met or exceeded that we can actually start to go, yeah, we're starting to get there, we're getting a high performing team. But a lot of it as well for me is about the feeling, and it's what we actually see. So hopefully we would see a lack of conflict, as Claire mentioned before. We would see the individual teams pulling together as one, going the extra mile and really supporting and helping each other. And I always think as well, this is particularly noticeable when the leader is absent for whatever reason, if they're on holiday, for instance, and it's when that team continues to exceed and hit those targets, but actually they're still there to support each other. They're working as one. And it does remind me of saying that I learned quite a few years ago is, as a leader, you need to develop your people to the point where you're no longer required. So things will continue to tick over in your absence to the same quality.
You mentioned a lot about leadership there. As a question's come in actually, and it reverted, it's slightly going backwards, but it's worth doing now. I'm just back onto the poll. Someone's asked really, how do leaders address the issues you raised in the poll? So, you know, as we're talking about leadership, do you want to kind of tackle that one, Claire, perhaps?
So I think that one of the primary functions of a leader is to generate that trust and that openness. So when we talk about trust, it's quite tangible, really. It's treating each other with respect, having an environment where people are able to be open, honest, not have ideas ridiculed, where people all have an equal voice, regardless of how they prefer to communicate. So I think the leader needs to really make sure that they are treating each member of the team as individuals, modifying to their kind of preference. So treating team members in a way that they want to be treated, which will engage that level of participation, etc. And the leaders kind of set the example, really, in terms of doing what they say they'll do, having a variety of communication, not just kind of communicating with a one-size-fits-all mentality, and just making sure that people are included, they have a voice, etc. And sometimes it can take a little bit of time to generate that trust, but if we epitomise the behaviours that we expect within the team, then it becomes the norm, then it becomes the accepted behaviour within the team as a whole.
Yeah. Anything to add, Jonathan?
I think I agree entirely with what Claire was saying, and I think a useful way of building trust and building this team commitment, etc., and buy-in is to set ways of working. I'm a real great advocate of ways of working where the team actually set them together, so it's not dictated to by the leader, but you could include there, you know, communication styles what was I going to say? I was thinking about, you know, making sure that everybody is heard. So that can be one of your ways of working. Will give chance for those quieter people to actually voice their opinion and to be heard. I always recommend to all our leaders to set these ways of working within the team, because then it's really easy to pick someone up on it.
Great. All right. So sorry, I just jumped that one in because it was on leadership. So and Claire, just coming back to you, so come back on the question too. So we're talking about this identifying high performance team. Sort of top line indicators for you then, really. So, you know, how do people in their organization find these high performing teams, the gold standard, if you like?
Absolutely. So regardless of department and function, whatever the team results are, or what they're measured on, they can be seen and measured. And often a high performing team are those who are not just consistently meeting those targets, but maybe smashing them, going above and beyond. So that's a very obvious measurable target initially.
Okay.
It can also be recognised in the reputation and a profile that a team has in the wider business. So in terms of a team that becomes known as kind of the experts, the people that are helpful, the people that are engaged in the wider function of the business, not just their own individual team dynamic. So the opposite of kind of a silo mentality, really, that the team is open and communicative, not only within themselves, but within the wider business as well.
Okay, great. Let's move on this because time's pressing. Let's go back to our second poll. Let's run on second poll. Again, it should pop on your screen. What is the biggest barrier to performing team development sessions? So this is kind of where we're getting into the sessions, the nitty gritty. 3 choices here. So A, lack of buy-in, B, concerns surrounding bias, C, fear of calling people out on strengths and weaknesses. So again, if you could all, love you to all have a go at that one. So, you know, just a good flavour of what the main barriers are, again, with the audience today. Again, predictions, Jonathan, what are you predicting here?
I would have to probably go there with lack of buy-in, and whether that's from management downwards or to the actual team, I think that one will probably come out quite high.
I'd imagine the same, actually. Yeah, I'd go with lack of buy-in as well. That's the one that I've certainly seen during my time working with teams and organisations more than anything else, really.
Yeah. Okay, and so just looking again as results are coming in, yeah, lack of buy-in, 57%, 46% fear of calling people out on strengths, etc., and only 4% on concerns around surrounding bias. So yeah, clearly lack of buy-in is the key one here. Okay, so just let's move on to the sort of next question then. So Claire, can you give us provide us with a sort of best practice on how to run a successful team, you know, audit session then? So give us the important things to look out for.
Absolutely. So there are many ways of doing this. First of all, it can be remote, it can be face-to-face, it can be a couple of hours, it can be a half day or full day, tied in with other kind of team building elements as well. And over the past 18 months or so, that there's been a lot more kind of variety in the ways that we've been running these team sessions. But regardless of kind of the timings, etc., of the day, it's essential that the session is positioned correctly initially, because people need to know what the purpose of the session will be, what the purpose of the team audit is. Because if they don't, there can be a misunderstanding, which leads to suspicion about the reason behind these team sessions happening, where people can jump to very negative assumptions. So there has to be that clarity of why we're doing it and what the outcomes are going to be. Now, the Thomas team audit is based on the PPA, the personal profile analysis, our behavioural assessment, which uses DISC theory to illustrate an individual's behavioural preference in the workplace. And the language of DISC provides what we call safe language with which to talk about difference in the workplace. Again, it's not the only language that we use, but when it comes to difference and kind of working on relationships, it's that safe language that people can buy into, and it's a common language as well. Ideally, people need to have the opportunity before the session to complete a PPA and receive individual feedback. Because if they do that prior to the team session, they are aware what the assessment is, but also what it isn't. They will know that the assessment indicates behavioural preference, not ability. And then this shows them how their own preference can affect how we are going to view other people within our teams that have got very different or even similar preferences to us, and the impact that we have through our own behaviour on the wider team. When you're in the actual session, I think it's important to include elements of fun. And that could be getting to know you type activities. It could be sharing things about our lives outside of work. If it's face-to-face, you can do a team building activity that's going to be fun. And the purpose behind that is actually getting to know each other, which is really vital for team kind of dynamics. And then it's also good to have an acknowledgement of where we've been, what we're good at. A couple of team sessions that I did over the past year, a couple of them were both in financial services. And part of the session was, let's look at what we've achieved. Obviously, we can talk about the challenges, but let's look and celebrate, the things that we've done successfully and how we've responded to the pandemic. And then you can do a team audit report in conjunction with the team session, and that can highlight the behaviours in the team and lead to a discussion about the behaviours that we have and the behaviours that maybe we need to work on. So you can actually have the language of actual team behaviour versus ideal team behaviour, and then this provides the foundation for an action plan for the team. I think it's important to stress that the team themselves come up with the ideal behaviours. It's not kind of placed upon them. They decide what they need to work on. And that ownership is much more likely to encourage engagement and commitment. And then they themselves decide, when are we going to revisit this? When are we going to measure whether we've been successful or not? And that could be quarterly, monthly meetings. They could do this once a year. So there's lots of flexibility with team sessions, and we can always, bespoke them, and people can use the knowledge they have about PPA to provide that foundation.
Okay, thanks, Claire. And just a question has just come in, and again, it's on this point about trying to get people into these sessions. So on the poll before, someone's mentioned that none of those were really relevant, and actually time, taking people out of the productive fee earning work is the biggest impact, for their delivery, service, and KPIs. So there's this question of how do you get that balance right. Jonathan, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, this is something we're very lucky with at Pure, because we have a completely different approach, because we are so people focused that actually one of our key phrases is any kind of development and learning and training, etc., is not on top of your workload, it is part of your workload, and it's actually vital because it will help you work more efficiently, not just as an individual but as a team as well. So we very strongly promote this constant message that it's there for you, and it's vitally important to the individuals but the business as a whole.
Claire, anything to add?
I mean, 2-hour online session isn't going to be too onerous to people. And like I said, you can include as much activity or as little as you want, but 2 hours out of anyone's schedule, it might be a challenge initially. But again, if you explain what's going to happen in that session and the potential benefits of that, and you could always split the sessions over a period of a couple of weeks as well. So that's the thing, you can be flexible in terms of delivery, etc. But it doesn't have to be a full day or a half day. It could be 2 hours, and you can still get that real impact of the assessment and what it's indicating in a short amount of time.
Right, actually, Claire, ours are 2 hours. Exactly, and we've run them because of time constraints. We've started them in August, but we've got a number of different teams across the business, so they're actually running right through, and we're keeping going till December. So yeah, it makes that we can actually fit it into the work schedule.
Okay.
And Jonathan, I mean, just tell us, because you run these, you run these yourself. So give us a flavour of your own team building sessions. How do you structure them? And the learning and outcomes. So give us a flavour.
Yeah, it's interesting because we actually do base the team building ones that we're currently running on the Thomas personal profile analysis. We do it slightly different way around to Claire. Because of time constraints, we haven't actually got the time. There's only 4 of us currently accredited practitioners. So to actually go out and deliver individual feedback to everybody would not be possible. We are going to try and fit that in afterwards. So we're doing these team sessions to actually promote awareness of the different DISC profiles as well. And the aim is to actually understand your own drivers and communication styles, but also that of others, and not just within your team, but obviously the wider teams as well that we actually all work with as well. So we're not working in silos, as we discussed there as well. The aim is that we understand people's communication styles, so we can communicate to them in the way that they need to be communicated to. But also, if someone's communicating to us in a different way, we can at least understand where they're coming from. And again, it should reduce potential conflict because we don't have this misunderstanding of potentially a D-disc profile sending a very short email through to a hi, which would be like, oh, that's a bit strange. There's no smiley faces or exclamation marks on it. And so we include a number of different exercises throughout the session. I'm not going to reveal them all there because some of our teams haven't been through them and are keeping it as a surprise for them. All I'll say is there's a blindfold involved. All the exercises are focused on communication. And the feedback that we've had from people, not just the team members, but the managers as well, is that's been absolutely fantastic. They're getting something out of it. They have a better understanding. Like you said, Claire, we talk about not just our work style profiles as well, but how that translates into our personal life as well. And bringing those examples in also make it really fun and can really help us understand it. But I think a key point as well is it's showing the fact that certainly at Pure that we're invested in our people. We're willing to give you this time for your development as well. And so you can see that we're trying to create these high performing teams. And I think that's absolutely vital, but we do have a lot of fun with them, definitely.
The fun is key, and as you say, if they getting so much out of it and then sharing that back, that becomes infectious, doesn't it? So, okay, yes. Good. Well, let's move on. Time again. So, Claire, coming to you now. So, let's talk about how do you know when you've gone from a, let's say, a dysfunctional team to a high-performing team. So, I guess we're looking for measurable outcomes. So give us a flavour of that challenge there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny actually because there are specific measurable outcomes. So results, output, profitability, whatever the key indicators may be. But there are also other indicators which are slightly more intangible, but no less valuable. And these can include, like I said earlier, the team having a higher profile, more positive profile than the business, gaining a more positive reputation within the wider company as well. You can also see things like team members looking happier, that there's a buzz within the team, there's positivity. And again, just to kind of repeat what I was saying earlier, really, a team that's high performing, their impact goes beyond their own remit and into the wider business and within other teams as well. So some of the stuff is more measurable than others, but there will be lots of indicators that a team has moved from that dysfunctional space.
And Jonathan, so again, have you known that exact point when it moved from this high performance team, the eureka? What changed? What's the signs, evidence? Give us a flavour of that.
Yeah, I will say I echo exactly what Claire said, but I do think it's almost very difficult to actually pinpoint the exact moment that it happens. Yes, we will see the measurables, like we said as well. I think it's also important to note, though, that once we've achieved this point, that we know how to maintain that high-performing team. And again, our management training program does cover that off as well. So yeah, you'll see the measurables, you'll see the targets and the SLAs being exceeded as well. But like Claire said, I think equally important, it's the little things that you'll see the team pulling together, helping each other. For instance, we have quite an array of different ways that we reward and recognise our stars, our people, from Employee of the Month, Team Star of the Month. We even have Call of the Month as well. And I think it's when you see individual team members nominating their teammates because they value their teammates and like to see them getting the reward as well. I think it's then that you can kind of notice and go, do you know what? Yeah, we're in the right place now.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, let's look. We talked a little bit in one of the polls about workplace conflict. So let's look at this, especially in this. I think this new hybrid model we're moving to. So Claire, is there such a thing as positive workplace conflict? I think that's quite an interesting statement there. And how can you mitigate negative workplace conflict in hybrid teams?
It is funny actually, when most people think of conflict, they automatically kind of go to the negative examples of conflict, which can have an effect on individual working relationships and also general morale of a team as well. And this is especially true at the moment because of that potential of the hybrid or remote environment, where you can't communicate in the same way that we do face to face. So when it comes to reading emotional signals or body language, and we have to be really careful about making assumptions, especially when people are working remotely. So when it comes to conflict, I think the first thing to think about is tapping into people's preference for communication to kind of avoid those assumptions, avoid the miscommunication, avoid the misunderstanding. And I think there is such a thing as positive conflict, but it only comes from that genuine foundation of trust and respect that we were talking about earlier, where difference of opinion can actually help to generate ideas, to generate thinking outside the box, which then helps us to drive performance. So there can be positive conflict, but sometimes we have to do a little bit of work to get to that point.
And what about this sort of recognizing, when someone, within a team is, or a whole team is struggling? So especially remote, how easy is that?
It comes down to kind of acknowledging the fact that remote working is different and it provides its own difficulties. And I think we need to acknowledge that, and we need to give each team member the voice to say, okay, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I need in terms of team communication, sharing ideas, etc. And just giving people voice to talk about potential issues which could lead to conflicts and discussing it. From a kind of manager to employee level, team member level, but also for the team themselves to have that safe space and use that language maybe of DISC or not, but just have generally that safe space to be open, honest, and within that realm of respect.
Yeah, great. Okay. And Jonathan, just from you, I mean, workplace conflicts, can it be positive? And again, I guess, can you share examples of where you might have seen that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be. And I know a lot of us, especially depending on your DISC profile, a lot of us do tend to avoid conflict. However, yeah, it can be a positive thing. Great creativity can come out of conflict, but only if it is handled and managed effectively. And again, one of the modules that we have on our management training program is about so our leaders can understand and manage conflict properly. And yeah, I have actually fairly recently seen one example of conflict within a team. It was handled perfectly, I will say. We had a coaching session, first of all, with the leaders involved as well. And the way it was handled, we gave each person the opportunity to actually have their say, first of all, privately, so we could actually understand the issues. Then we were able to take that through to a team mediation session. And again, like Claire said, that was make sure it was a safe environment. There was no fear of reprisals, so issues could be raised. We understood if emotions became high. We understood that. We allowed for it. We gave people time for it as well. But it allowed people to actually come up then with solutions. And again, it was the team that came up with these solutions. They worked together. Like I said, it was due to lack of or miscommunication. So the team have worked together. They've now put in best practices for communication. How do they want things to be communicated to them? How, when is also very important as well. We've seen, email, I think it's a wonderful tool. I don't think it should be used for communication too often. I'll be honest, I'm a great fan of jump on Teams. Certainly with me and my team, rather than use email, if we've got a question, we will jump on Teams so we can see each other. We can have that conversation face to face. And I think that's vital, especially when you're talking about potential hybrid working and conflict. We've been lucky, I think, because we've put so many practices in place. We've actually avoided a lot of conflict in our hybrid teams, but it's about being connected. Microsoft Teams, Zoom, they've been amazing for us. I don't know how we would have coped 5 years ago without, to be honest, without this online platform. But again, the team that I was talking about, they've put together, they set their own ways of working together. So they've all agreed it. So they all follow this now. It's had a tremendous effect. It really has. They're a brilliant team. They understand each other. They can pull each other up if somebody's not following these specific ways of working, but they can do it in a non-conflict manner as well. And I would say actually that team has become a high-performing, really well-gelled, cohesive team. So out of conflict, but this great, fantastic result.
Yeah. No, thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. The email can be horrendous, can't it? For and you say you can read the signs much more face to face. So, okay, so let's talk culture. you know, kind of an important issue here, I think, when it comes to creating your high performing team. So Claire, I guess, you know, this whole idea of hiring for culture fit, you know, is that outdated now? Your thoughts on that.
I don't think it's outdated per se. I think it depends on the specific needs of a team or even a business, really. The benefit of hiring people to add to a culture as opposed to fitting into a culture is that it can help to challenge the status quo and perhaps prevent a team from stagnating. For example, if you've got a team who are all very similar in their behavioural preference, it could lead to certain areas of team performance being missed. So I remember I was once part of a team where everybody was very verbal, positive, energetic, and so on. Now, at first glance, that was great. You know, we had a great time together, but there were certain elements that were missing that would have made us more successful. Basically, we needed more people who were the concluders and the analysers and so on. So there was a deliberate decision to hire to a different behavioural profile going forwards to kind of counterbalance some of the behaviour that, to be honest, we did have an oversupply of. And this is another area where if people do use a team audit, it will give you an overview of the behavioural roles within a team and maybe help you make it more balanced, or just to focus on what is right for that particular team when it comes to, for example, making decisions about recruitment from a behavioural perspective.
Yeah. And Jonathan, just, I guess, you know, in your own hiring strategy, let's take it down that far. So has that changed, you know, over time or recently? And where do you stand on the whole culture fit, culture add debate?
Yeah, so we're probably a little bit different there because we're actually strong believers in a cultural fit. The nature of our business, the way it's run, we, as I said, you know, there's 212, we still have that very family feel. It's a very people-focused culture. So we're very aware that we want that to continue. So like Claire said, you know, we don't want a bad apple in the team or somebody that set the apple cart, for instance, because that would cause, you know, disconnect within the team. It would create an awful lot more work for the leaders and the management handling, you know, sort of more conflict rather than dealing with the developing the people and, you know, focusing on the goals as well. Through actually the team building sessions that we've been running, it is quite evident that a lot of the teams are very similar, but we still have a good mix. It's not to say that we're all clones of each other. We're definitely not mini-me's. We do have a very diverse workforce, very different characteristics as well. But I think predominantly for us, it's the fit, it's the people culture fit that's vital to us for our successful teams. And I would say that is what makes Pure such a fantastic place to work.
Yeah, I mean, diversity, obviously, inclusion is a huge topic at the moment, quite rightly so. And this, you know, so I guess, yeah, getting that mixed right. But again, don't lose sight of your culture is what you're kind of saying. However, depending on the culture itself, doesn't it? You know, does that need to change? So it's a different discussion. But okay. All right, let's any questions, by all means do let us know if you've got any questions, certainly around culture, and fit, we can get to those. Let's kick off with our final poll then. This is our third one, so this will pop up on the screen now. This is just a flavour really of what how you're working at the moment. So how does your organisation currently work? Is it A, office, B, remote, or C, hybrid? So again, if you can just let us know how that might sit. I'm kind of thinking myself is good. Certainly we're seeing a lot. It's office is kind of out at the moment, sort of remote number one, I would say, and then hybrid very soon, I think. So let's see what comes in. Now, again, just panel. Well, Jonathan, what's your plans? Give us your status and plans yourself as a business on this.
Yeah, so we're currently very much hybrid working. It does vary across the actual teams. For instance, we've had one team that it's necessary for them to have been in the office, and they've actually been in the office throughout the pandemic. We've created obviously lots of social distancing, so we make room for people as well. But we've got, you know, on the other side, we've had teams that have been permanently at home throughout. We're just starting to open up the office slowly, so we're now getting into more of this hybrid working. So we've probably got most people going in either 1 or 2 days a week at the moment, and then the rest of the time at home. For instance, I'm at home today, back in the office tomorrow, and it's actually been really nice going back in to actually see everybody again. You know, we have missed that, so that's why we believe hybrid is important. On the back of that, what we're currently doing, we have actually got a working group in place. We've got representatives right across the business, every department, every single level as well, and so we can work out the best strategy for us, for the business, but also for our people. I will suspect, though, that hybrid working is definitely here to stay from now on.
Eric, I mean, just the flavour of again how your organisation is working at the moment as well.
So for us, it's mainly remote, although some offices have reopened for those who prefer to work in that environment. What's interesting for us, though, as a global company, working remotely has really kind of forced us and helped us to focus on a kind of global view of our colleagues. So it's made us more aware of things like time differences, impact of kind of remote communication, and as JP mentioned earlier, the benefit actually has been amazing of having things like Zoom, Teams, etc., to lead to that greater global communication, which we didn't have to the same extent pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, let's look at the results, because it's, yeah, I think it won't surprise you, I don't think, really. So 81% hybrid, 18% office, and 12% remote. You know, I mean, I think we've seen for a long time hybrid seems to be, it's just incredibly flexible. As you say, it's all about marrying up what's right for the business and right for the individual, and working that through. But that's yeah, that's pretty conclusive, isn't it? And not a surprise, really. Okay, so let's again, don't forget questions. Always looking for your questions still, so please do send them in. Let's move. So I mean, no surprises there. I don't think it's worth dwelling on that one, but let's look at kind of this. This is sort of our final question. So hopefully we've got some questions coming in at the end. But Jonathan, let's turn to you really, and let's look at, you know, challenges your organisation has faced with, you know, building and nurturing. Let's talk about sort of building, nurturing the teams during, you know, let's face it, challenging and changing times. So give us a sense of how you've coped with that and how you've managed that and how best to actually.
Yeah, we were, before the pandemic, we were 100% office based. So, and literally overnight, we went from having, I think it's around 140 people, 160 people in the office to 12. So big challenges. We'd literally just got Teams, and everybody, we had a quick session. I think it was a Friday morning. Everybody was pulled into the training rooms in their different teams. This is Teams, this is how it's going to work. This is how you log on at home as well. We've been really proactive, though, and as I said, I don't know how we'd have coped without Teams and Zoom. It would have pretty much been impossible. When I said before, I used to manage sites remote. I had 4 different sites in different towns. I had email and a mobile phone. That was it. So we're very lucky now to have these platforms in place. As I say, we've been very proactive. So we've implemented all sorts of different things to keep nurturing our culture, to keep teams connected. One thing is that we implemented straight away was Wellbeing Calls. So, and again, the individual could choose whether they needed a wellbeing call daily or weekly, but every day or every week, the leader will get in touch with individuals and they'll have that chat with them just to make sure that everything's okay. Do they need any extra support? But again, it's about keeping that connect. We also decided that it was very important to keep teams together, to have some fun. So again, weekly team meetings were built in before the phone lines were switched on. Every team would have, say, a half-an-hour fun meeting, whether that be playing bingo with prizes or quizzes. And again, each team member could get involved to actually, you know, I'm doing the quiz this week, etc., doing all sorts. So we've had some great fun doing that as well. It was just important that we had these sessions that weren't work related. We didn't want to talk about work. We just wanted some fun with it. And again, because of the fantastic support that we have from our SLT, my team then created and delivered around 10 different resilience sessions. And again, these were available for the whole business. We started with general resilience, so mental, physical, social and spiritual, giving all people top tips of how to cope professionally and personally as well, because lockdown was such a challenge, you know, personally. We did all sorts of things. We were allowed to go off on a tangent. We went from desk yoga, eye yoga, mindfulness. The strangest one we did with a lot of fun was laughter yoga. So if you've not done that, it's well worth doing. You'll not forget it as well. But again, it just showed the fact that we were there supporting our people. We were there for them. We were keeping people connected in every possible way we could. And actually, again, I think we turned it into a very positive experience. Certainly made it a lot of fun. But we've had a lot of feedback. A lot of people that didn't want to work from home have actually found that actually there's a lot of benefits from it. And that therefore moving to this hybrid world is actually going to work perfectly for them. We're going to get the social contact on the days we're in, but actually on the other days we can crack on and probably get quite a lot of work done at home. But we did do it. We had, measures in place that if somebody, no, I can't work from home, it doesn't work for me, then we create space for them in the office. We were very fair. We really, really looked after our people.
That's a couple of points you make there. I think, and I think where people do their work, where they're most productive for the type of work they need to do at that point in time is what's quite key here. And I think you're right. The fun side, the personal side in any meeting before you kind of catch up with to the business part, really important if you're not getting that kind of office, you're out of the office. So Claire, coming to you then, really, again, as we said, obviously we've just come through some pretty tough times. And I think the speed of change has been incredible. And so I guess what main challenges, I know Jonathan alluded to his, but what main challenges are you seeing with your clients, outside of that?
There've been a few common themes, one of which was working with teams whose team members had been through the challenge of redundancy consultations, newly formed teams, alongside the challenges of hybrid and remote working. So those two things together, teams that have been a little bit kind of, mentally battered by that process of furlough, part-time, redundancy, all that kind of thing. So kind of working with a lot of clients to reform, re-energize teams so that they can move forwards whilst acknowledging that they have been through those challenging times. Another issue I did notice a few times is the potential resentment that can happen between teams that were split between hybrid and office-based workers. So that was quite interesting. But what's good is, any team session allows people to talk and be open about their own challenges. To a certain extent, that could just be personal challenges, but also just to openly and honestly discuss those challenges about remote working, about employees who are working a different way to them, and challenging some of those assumptions and those negative emotions that can come into that. So again, if you have that safe forum in those team sessions, it can really, really help to just open up some of those issues, allow people to discuss them, and then look at, okay, how do we move forwards now? Whilst acknowledging kind of where we've been, let's now focus on where we're going.
Okay. Okay, good. There's a few questions coming in, which I think it'd be good to look at now. So let's have a look here what we've got. Let's have a look. Were there trust issues experienced WFH periods, and how were they managed? Anyone like to have a go at that one? Or what do we mean by WFH?
Okay, working from home. So yeah, well, just to go back to what I was saying previously, actually, a lot of people, when I had the kind of discussion with the person who'd organised the team workshop and team session, through those discovery calls, there was an acknowledgement that, okay, this team is going to get together, and there's some resentment on either side, really. And there was an initial assumption about working from home. People are going to be less productive, they've got an easier life, and so on. And what was really interesting, I mean, this has been a wider issue recently for a lot of companies, is that negative assumption has been blown out of the water, really. And a lot of people have said, actually, working from home, yes, you've got the freedom to kind of, work in an environment which can be a positive thing, but it also can be even more work. And I think there's been a challenge to that assumption that people who are working from home aren't working as hard. Actually, you are living at work. That's the kind of main difference there. So a lot of people have opened up about the fact that, you know, I don't just sit on the couch or the sofa and watch TV and do the work in the background. Actually, I'm always there. People know where I am, you know, and have almost demanding kind of time spent in that working environment has been the opposite of what people expected, really, in terms of working from home. So again, having that forum where people can say, actually, let me explain to you what working from home looks like for me, but also the people who have not ever worked from home and have remained office based throughout the pandemic. Again, it's raised that greater understanding about the challenges that each one has. I think that's a good thing, really.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Jonathan?
yeah, it comes down to communication. Again, particularly because it was one of our teams, because they needed to be in the office to deal with the incoming posts. There's a lot of posts that had to go out as well. So it was communicating to them the importance of their role and why they were needed actually, you know, in the actual office itself. And I'll agree with Claire that, yes, it might have been an initial assumption, oh, you're working from home, you're not going to do as much. Actually, I would challenge it, and to the point where I actually have written a workshop and delivered it to quite a lot of our colleagues about working from home where the opposite happens. And I know I was very guilty of it when I first started working from home. I was awake, I was up, it was 7 o'clock, so I best switch my laptop on. And, you know, even though my normal hours are probably 8 till 4, I would be looking at it thinking, well, I know it's 4 o'clock and I know I've done actually my hours for the day, but what if somebody needs me? So although officially I wasn't working, my laptop I would carry around with me and have it on my sofa, and I would be responding to emails later into the night. So again, so we've actually been out to educate our people. No, your working hours are your working hours, and you know you must stick to those strictly, whether you're in the office or at home. So there are positives, and I would say as well, Claire, what you said. Yes, you're suddenly living and working in your home environment, and it can be very, very difficult to switch off. Even on, you know, days off, you kind of still there going, I can still see my computer, my laptop. So the other side of that is, you know, I'm a great advocate. The thing is, you know, on a weekend, you must put everything away. Everything must be hidden. You cannot see your laptop. And also having the correct setup as well, desk, chair, etc. as well. It's been really positive. Been a big learning curve. It really has.
A few more questions, so let's try and cram these in. Talking about diversity, do you think it's more important to hire a person who is fit for the role, i.e. competencies, or team fit to balance out the profiles? Who'd like to tackle that one?
It's very subjective. It really does depend. There's no one answer to that until you explore. Actually, let's look at the needs from the team for the role, etc., and that should drive your decision more than anything else, really. So there's no one answer to that. You have to start from a position of, okay, what's needed here? Is it the functionality, or is it behaviours that are going to be more important? Now, obviously, both are important, but you have to take it on a case by case basis, really. So there's no one kind of answer to that. I think you have to be flexible in your approach.
Yeah, additionally, I'm just picking up here, just add into that. So what I'm kind of getting at, yeah, role fit or to rather diversify the team. It's kind of, yeah. Jonathan?
Yeah, well, currently I'm actually recruiting at the moment for two members of staff for my team. So it's really tricky because I'm trying to hit the sweet spot. I'm trying to get somebody that is fit for the role, but also a cultural fit as well. So it does prove quite difficult, but that is actually what I'm aiming for.
Okay, something on hybrid. So assuming hybrid working is the future, how will this affect the use of office space given the need to optimize space? So more hot desking / flexible workplace. So is that the way you're both going?
Yeah, again, it's something we're currently investigating because, for instance, you know, we've got our office plan. Currently, as I say, there's 212 of us. There's actually, I think it's about 164 desks that we've actually got. So we know we're going to be hot desking. So we've got this plan in place where everybody can sit, we can book a hot desk. But actually what we're seeing as well, because I have an allocated desk in the office, and just speaking personally, when I'm in the office, I don't need my desk because I'm with somebody, I'm delivering a session, or I'm in for a meeting. So actually, is it a case of, do we need as many desks, or should we be turning these more into formal or informal meeting spaces? So again, it's something we're currently working through.
It's quite exciting, really, because we're able to be more dynamic, I think, in use of that working space. So again, there's a big push now. A lot of clients that I speak to, they do have that hot desking policy, which has kind of got rid of that kind of physicality of space and having your photos up and all your stuff around you. Those days seem to be gone, really. But the benefit is that you've got space to use it in different ways, multifunctional ways, etc. So I think it's quite exciting, and it does help companies with some of those issues that did used to be problematic, such as how many parking spaces do we have, working hours, etc. And that flexibility of approach, it can help with kind of timings of our workday as well, so that we're not stuck in traffic, that we're actually being more productive by maybe having that flexible approach to working hours as well as physical space.
No, I mean, there's so much exciting change that is happening through this. So I think, there's some huge positive to take. Okay, so listen, we're nearly there. But I thought if I could just perhaps come back to you both just to sum up, really. So give us perhaps 3 pointers each, could you, and this is all around successfully spotting, creating and managing high performance teams. So Jonathan, if I could come to you first. So give us your 3.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to narrow it down to 3.
I know.
So I've gone with my favourite. So I would say it starts with recruitment. So it's about recruiting the right people and then working with them to develop them through training. And again, we don't just look at role training, we look at the whole holistic approach. We have a lot of soft skills training as well to really develop people as well, and along with the team building sessions as well. So we're starting towards it. I do think it's important to have measurables in place where possible, such as we've mentioned targets and service level agreements and KPIs, etc., and engagement surveys as well, so we can keep aware of our engagement levels. And then finally, and I think it's a very personal point of view, but it's to have our leaders trained on maintaining high performing teams. So if we can understand the performance window, so if we've got a team of players, which is what we're all striving for, the fact that we actually know how to continue to nurture them and continue to develop them. So again, so we don't see them falling down the window. We don't want them to become a spectator or a pit bull as well. And of course, effectively managing conflict as well is a big one to keep that team in a high performance mode.
Claire, your 3.
So finally, to wrap up, I think spotting teams can be done through measurable results, KPIs, like I said, profitability, but also behaviours. Creating high-performing teams, having those team sessions, like I said, at the beginning of a year, maybe halfway through, quarterly, and getting the team together to talk about where they are and where they want to be. And then maintaining them, managing them going forwards, communication, and feedback. And I think feedback needs to be something that's ongoing and part of day-to-day activity, not just something we dip into around survey time or formally with 360s, but having that interaction to acknowledge success, but also to drive improvement as well.
Brilliant. Okay, listen, thank you so much. I think we're pretty much there. So we hope we've provided you some key learning today, best practice and methodology, and to help you identify, build and nurture your high performing teams. Thank you both to Jonathan and Claire for your excellent insights and knowledge, and for Thomas International for partnering. We will obviously, there is a recording. We will provide that to you afterwards, so please don't worry about that. And thank you all for watching and taking part, and hopefully we'll see you soon at another webinar. So thank you, Jonathan, Claire, and bye for now.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.